our UFC 297 recap at the end when I said that, we'd work on a video in the meantime, I definitely did not anticipate that we would be recording a podcast 2 days later, one day after the release of THH 61, which you guys should check out after this. But huge news in the MMA world, and it's big surprise to us and to many. Kayla Harrison, star of the PFL, has signed with the UFC, and she will be debuting at UFC 300 versus former UFC champion Holly Holm. And this fight will be at 135 pounds, weight class that Kayla Harrison has never fought at. For some context, she won her 2 Olympic gold medals in judo at 172 pounds, and she only fought in the PFL at 155 and 145. So to get into my thoughts, and I just think that this weight cut is the story of their fight right now. Like, obviously, it's just huge news for the UFC and for the PFL too, as we'll get into. But the weight cut in terms of like the fight itself, the weight cut is really what's going to matter, because she's never fought really close to this weight class. And she's naturally in the 160s. It's not the same thing for men and women when they're cutting weight, that's for sure. And I just think that it's going to be really, really difficult for Kayla to make 135. But I do think she can do it. It's not impossible. It's just really going to be tough. I mean, you remember we would see Cyborg on like Outside the Lines trying to cut to 135 back in the day, and it was just not happening for her. So for Kayla's sake, I really hope that it goes well, because I would love to see her really make a name for herself in this 135-pound division, which is wide open right now. I mean, Raquel Pennington is champion, which is great because now we have some like clarity at the top. She'll probably fight Juliana Pena. I would imagine if Kayla Harrison could get through Holly Holm, you're right, in a title shot, and that's a huge women's fight no matter whether she fights Pennington or Pena. So overall, I think this is pretty amazing. I hope it ends up being as amazing as it sounds right now, but we have to see her make the weight, and she obviously has to win the fight. So those are my thoughts. What did you think about this, man?
I mean, like, good for Kayla Harrison, man. Pretty much everything was pretty much put right in front of her, because I'm sure she, like you could speak on. We talked a little bit about before we just started recording this, but like she had one fight left on her contract with PFL, and I'm sure she would have made more money from that than now coming to UFC and signing this contract. But
See, I don't know though. I feel like they would have had to give her a lot of money to lure her away. And I know she wants to compete, and you might be right that it might be more, but I think the UFC probably paid it.
my thing is, just like the timing and all, just literally right after the division just got a new champion crowned, and obviously the fight was as underwhelming as it was. Feel like this was more like, hey, if you can make this cut, we're gonna give you this fight, and if you can make this cut and and win this fight, then you're right there at the top already. And that's the whole thing, right? Like, that's the whole thing that they're searching for. They're looking for these top contenders for the division and all that. And so I feel that it's a good point, but I think pretty much.
I mean, I think what you're trying to say is this was a competitive thing, honestly, like solely about competition. And Kayla would talk about, not caring about what her haters say about, the can crusher, shit like that. But it definitely had to play a role. I mean, there's no way you don't hear that noise. And Kayla Harrison is an awesome MMA fighter, one of the best female fighters on the planet, even back then. But now, like you said, I'm really happy for her, because now she actually gets the chance to prove it in a division, like you were saying, has, just a champion at the top, and after an underwhelming fight, needs some juice, and if she can succeed, she'll definitely help a lot. That's for sure.
I don't think something like opening women's featherweight or having this fight with Holly Holm as a catchweight fight. I don't think any of I think like this is legit. Like, hopefully she makes this cut and then goes on, wins the fight, and then good things go from there. And that's obviously that's a huge task. Like, I think either which way about it, like she's gonna look pretty freaking big for a bantamweight. And like that's pretty intriguing, especially when you got someone like Holly Holm across from you. Um, and then just like for the fight itself, just a big thing for because I mean as far as this could very well be like Holly Holm's last fight if this is that's the route they want to go if whether she loses or even if she wins and she wants to go out. I mean, hey, like it's tough, man, because the whole story is Kayla Harrison here, but I feel like Holly Holm has been getting a lot of flack for just like her overall fighting style, and no one really giving her that much of a chance to
Well, this is a
win
genius
this
fight
fight.
for her to take, if you think about it, because Kayla's coming in. I would imagine that she's thinking that this weight cut really might deplete her, and that's very possible for the amount of weight that Kayla is going to cut. I mean, she said in the past that she'd have to cut her leg off to make 135, and now she's literally signed a contract telling the UFC that she'll do that. So, like we've been saying, that's definitely the biggest part of the story. But the other part of the story I think that's worth getting into is the business side of it between the UFC and the PFL. So like you mentioned, she had one fight left on her deal, but I was watching the MMA Hour today, and Ariel Helwani was explaining that they, like Francis Ngannou's deal, it had like an expiration date in it, which was probably the end of 2023, if we had to guess, and basically making her an unrestricted free agent, no exclusivity period. Because if you remember, she was a free agent already, and she signed with Bellator to fight Cyborg, but then the PFL matched it, and she went back. Won. Actually, no, that might have been the season after that she lost to Pacheco. About either way, she went back to the PFL, made a lot of money there, and now she's in the UFC. It's just crazy because the PFL is not going to stand in her way. That they said that, and I think that's more so because trying to challenge the UFC in court. TKO Corporation with them and the WWE. That's $1 billion company, and it would just be financially stupid for the PFL to try and go after that. But at the same time, it's a little bit humiliating for them publicly because Don Davis was so big that for those who don't know, Don Davis is the CEO of the PFL. Um, he was so big about the Kayla Harrison Chris Cyborg fight being the biggest women's fight of 2024, which it really was. And I would imagine that he was just sure that they could get Kayla back because that now, oh my God, like they really lost on this one because now you have Cyborg trying to lobby for a fight at UFC 300, which I was saying to you before the show, I think is more like a financial ploy because I think the bridge is burned between her and the UFC, at least in my opinion. So I think that maybe she's just seeing the situation and maybe thinks she could get more money out of the PFL by doing that. So we'll see. But yeah, what did you think of this from both sides? Like from the UFC's perspective, obviously you kind of got into that, but maybe more from the PFL's perspective.
Yeah, from the PFL's perspective, I guess I wouldn't say helps, but you still obviously got Pacheco out there, and now that like even before this all happened, Kayla Harrison is still with PFL, and we're still all anticipating that fight getting booked and all that. It's fair to say that Cyber, someone like Larissa Pacheco is who Cyber should actually be fighting first. And now it's like now it's Cyborg obviously is well aware of her worth and whatnot. Like she's obviously made that clear. Now like you see it like so going as far to call for Amanda Nunes again at UFC 300, like literally on the same card as Kayla Harrison. Like she's clearly like she. I don't want to. I feel like petty is the wrong word, but not.
She knows her
She's
worth, like you
yeah.
said. I mean, because you said she made that clear, but at the same time, she does deserve it. She's one of the greatest, probably number two behind Nunes for the greatest women's fighters of all time. She's a pioneer too of the sport. It's been there in so many promotions. I mean, she was in like Strikeforce back in the day, Invicta. Oh my God, like it's crazy to think about Cyborg's career and how long it's been and all the women that she's fought. But yeah, like you were saying, like the PFL now they're in an odd position
Yeah,
because now they
man.
got to pay up.
And
So
then, yeah, I guess it's one thing if if that Pacheco fight doesn't happen either. But man, like now you gotta think like if maybe UFC now they're next. They're next. Who they're looking for next is Larissa Pacheco herself, and like that's just yeah, dude. That's a real tough deal for PFL to deal with. Like there's really not much. There's not much leverage going on here. I think because what to allude back to what I was saying earlier about uh whether or not Kayla Harrison would make more money with the PFL than taking this contract with UFC. Um, Basically, I mean, pretty much. I guess it's just a name. Maybe it's just a name thing, and there's just more out there for Kayla Harrison to move down to bantamweight and try to get after that title, knowing that it's not gonna take a whole lot to get to that that doorstep, and once again about the timing and whatnot, like literally right after the title fight just happened, and as underwhelming as it was, like they claim they pull a rabbit out of the hat, as UFC claims, and this is what it was, and it threw us all for a loop. There's no kidding about that, but
That was I gotta correct it. That was Ariel who said that, the rabbit in the hat. So I want to just give him credit, man. He's
yeah,
one of the best
agreed,
He is the
agreed.
best reporter
Yeah,
in MMA. I mean, yeah.
damn, yeah. It's pretty. Not to
He's
say
I
he
think
saw. Yeah, he saw a ground like some sort of groundbreaking news coming.
Yeah,
Then
because I think he said that he knew that they were working on it, but obviously, like you can't just say that really. Like MMA isn't really like the same as the NBA or the MLB and stuff, where you get all these like rumors from the top journalists. They usually only report like when they know it to be happening, because in MMA, if you're wrong, you kind of get like eviscerated for it, and
hmm
especially someone like Ariel, like he has to report like the truth because his fan base is so polarizing towards him, but. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, it really was a rabbit out of the hat, and Ariel really couldn't have picked a better phrase for it, because it's true. I mean, no one could have imagined that this was gonna happen.
yeah, I know, and I mean, yeah, I feel like in a way, even much less to put her on UFC 300. Like, I mean, shit, like we don't have to wait. Like the fact that we already know like when the fight's gonna happen. No waiting for when the fight's gonna happen, then having to wait for the fight itself. So that's pretty cool. You would definitely want to see more of that. I think you've definitely been seeing the trend of UFC signing more of these top outside stars too, like MVP for instance, who's also gonna fight soon. So now they get their hands on Kayla Harrison, and just back from her, I guess, just back from her point of view and the PFL. Yeah, I guess just you know, obviously to Kayla Harrison, the Chris Cyber fight wasn't the biggest or best fight out there for her, and like good for her once again. She's got a real chance at getting a title for the biggest promotion, and you can't knock that you can't knock that from her whatsoever. It all once again just relays back to the whole weight cut itself
Yeah.
and how she's gonna look. You know, not even throughout the process, but once we get to the fight itself, how that's gonna play out. Um, obviously knowing that context is there. So
Yeah, it's a super interesting matchup, and I mean, I do hope she gets to the fight healthy. That's all you can really ask for, and this is a chance for her, like you said, to really just prove everybody wrong and shut everybody up. For the life of me, I still cannot understand how she has so many haters. She's genuinely probably one of the like nicest, humble people. Well, maybe like a little overconfident at times, but like she's honestly like just one of the better people in MMA in my opinion. I mean, her personal story, like she raises those children. I think it was. I don't want to get the story wrong, but like she's basically like a surrogate mother of like these kids. So like right when I heard that, I'm like, this lady cares enough to like raise someone's children who aren't her own. So I for the life of me, like I said, I don't understand why people don't like her. But either way, it's gonna be insane that she's on UFC 300, like you said, the big spotlight event for the UFC, and there's gonna be a lot of eyeballs on her debut, and there's gonna be so much hype behind it. So, like I said, I hope she
yeah,
gets there.
man, it really it now it gauges the question once again, since we know that Grasso and Zhang Wei Li isn't gonna happen at least right now. Obviously, Zhang Wei Li's already been booked, and she's also gonna be on UFC 300, so that's pretty cool. Um, and then this just happened. Now Kayla Harrison is, because now, now, fine, fair, whatever. If this is the role you want to play as a fan, and you want to go with, oh well, she's ducking Chris Cyborg, or like she just ran away from Chris Cyborg. She was right there in the same promotion first. She was talking all this jazz beforehand, and all this confidence beforehand, and now she's just going off to another promotion. We just simply don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So, really, when you take it at face value, when you take it for what it is, it's a big deal. And the real question it gauges is, like, what is the biggest fight out there for women's MMA now?
I think it has to be Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes, because she recently talked about possibly coming back.
That's what seemingly the end game is here for Kayla Harrison and UFC. They probably met up and said, like, this is the whole reason why we want you to make this drastic of a weight cut, knowing how much this division needs contenders like you, and that if you can knock down obviously a bona fide veteran like Holly Holm on this big of a card, with all these eyes watching and whatnot, like, if this is what, because that's really another thing, like, money aside, I think definitely Kayla Harrison, she wants her name out there. She wants to know the world to know that she's one of the biggest stars in all women's MMA, like right now anyways, even before the Holly Holm fight. So just like this news alone, just her name getting out there like that in the headlines and stuff, like, like in that case, like, you can't blame her whatsoever. Like, it's up to her to make the cut and win the fight, obviously, and you just let the chips fall where they may. But that's what I've seen some fans talking about, like, the whole end game is for too. Like, hey, we're all trying to see Amanda Nunes' a return fight, be against Kayla Harrison, who possibly would be the champion at the time, or if it's a fight to get to the title or whatnot. That's what everyone is talking about, and not Chris Cyborg running it back with Amanda Nunes, because that's more of a Chris Cyborg thing. Like, that's her
personal.
that's her trying to pull the leverage and whatnot with both PFL and UFC. Like, we can keep spicing this division up if you sign me to this contract and put me on the card too. But
I still think it's just money with her. I think she's trying to just get more money out of him because she has a lot of leverage. I mean, she's a huge star. She just boxed. So, like, it's not like she can't make money somewhere else. So she knows her worth. Kayla Harrison obviously knows hers too. I mean, she's won millions of dollars in the PFL, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and now she has the chance to become a UFC champion if she can possibly get through Holly Holm and one more fight. So we'll see what happens, but we'll be here to cover it. See you.
Feel just like a superstar. Doing all these drugs, I don't think I'm gonna see tomorrow. Living fast, brand new dash up in a foreign car. It's the type of shit that you